Marvel Snap's September patch is now live, and there's basically 3 things you really actually need to know. Number 1, the 2 Activate cards have officially transferred over. You see here, Black Swan is a 2/3, and Hell Cow is now a 4/6, so they've both gone from on reveal to activate. They've also now given a little bit of love to Swordmaster with a targeted discard, but this time towards odd-costed cards. This is probably good. When looking at the targeted discards that Swordmaster's now going to be able to capitalize on, there's really not a lot in that specific niche that he makes really incredibly strong. So on the one end, you're getting this great push of power at 3/7, which is a really premium stat line, but then you need it to hit something productive. How do you go exactly about that, especially in a world where we have 2 other cards going live with Activate, as well as a brand new card going live with Activate in Araña? We need Swordmaster to target something very specifically is what it comes down to. So how do we mitigate that? It brought me back to the old decks that the King of Canada used to build for the Snap fan tournaments. And if you don't know the King of Canada, I highly recommend you go take a look at him over on Twitch. His favorite mechanic to bring to those tournaments way long ago, early last year, was the yo-yo combo of Lady Sif into Ghost Rider something. Well, if we use that same mindset and just build that into a control package, even in a world where Araña comes on out and is able to move into the Professor X lanes, it's not necessarily going to be detrimental to having this deck be effective, because you have clog mechanics built in with the Hobgoblin and the White Widow. You have the ability to get into that lane later on via Jeff, and by having Makari automatically play herself down, Swordmaster being really good stats, and the Kitty Pryde on top of it, there are ways to pin the Kitty Pryde down underneath a Professor X, and you have the ability to reach into that lane later on with Ms. Marvel. So there's probably some testing to be done with this style of deck, but that's how I see Swordmaster being used now, is in some kind of win a lane early on turn 4 or turn 5 type mechanic. We're seeing the success of having a big lane win early with Agatha right now, with the Black Knight combinations that are getting very popular thanks to Husky Puppies and friends. But now we have a way to lock down a lane that no matter how big that Agatha gets, you can't play into it later on. Sure, Araña can move something over and you're gonna have to mess with those counter synergies, maybe figure out a way to tech in a Hercules, if you will. But I do think that this style of a little bit of disruption, a little bit of clog, and early lockdown is something to keep an eye on for the new Swordmaster. But don't think I'm gonna skip completely over the activate abilities of Hell Cow. In my opinion, for Helidex, Hell Cow now justifies itself as the official replacement of MODOK, because MODOK has so many other requirements to make it work. Hell Cow, you can drop down on either 4 or 5, then activate right before the flip over of Hela on turn 6. So sure, you have a targeted discard in Blade, you have Corvus Glaive, which is your only risk card in any way, because you always know when you're going to activate your Hell Cow or where your blade is actually going to hit. So let's take some big pieces in here. Go ahead. You've got your Red Hulk, you got your Magneto, you got your Infinite. You can pick and choose in how you build your Hela deck from there. But the key part that I did want to talk about is Crystal's inclusion. I do think that Hela decks go incredibly high, incredibly well. And right now, Crystal is a card that's going to help generate more of those cards into your hand for you to have a wider chance to not only draw Hela, but to also mitigate the damage of Corvus Glaive getting a hit on turn 4. That combination altogether then makes it a lot more consistent. Black Knight, of course, is obviously going to put another Ebony Blade into the hand no matter what it ends up hitting, and Black Cat's going to discard itself, so you never have to worry about that card pretty much anyway. This is an overall new take on trying to figure out how can we be more consistent with Hela. Crystal is my spin on it. You could probably tech in some other cards like Luke Cage if you want to mitigate that, swap out the Iron Man, but it's really up to you. That's how I see Hell Cow in the activate ability now actually working. And then there's the new Black Swan as a 2/3. And honestly, thank goodness, because they needed to have her come down an earlier turn if they were going to convert her to activate, because you need one turn to actually activate the ability. So now you can play her down on either 2, 3, or 4 to activate by turn 5 and have all those reductions apparently laid on out for turn 6. This is my spin on a Blounce deck right now, which is capitalizing on only truly reducing the value of one card because it is a Bast deck. We're only reducing down the Beast, and I think given every other card that is in this deck that benefits from it, that downside is way upscaled versus the upside. So let's, you know what I meant. So let's take a look at how this deck is going to essentially operate. You're looking to drop down either the Collector or Kate Bishop more often than not on turn 2. You have the Black Swan, which can go down however it needs to be filled in on, whether you're falconing and then playing down the Black Swan to activate later on. You just need some point to play a couple of 1s and then a Black Swan in those middle turns. Obviously, you're trying to spin into the Hit Monkey on turn 6. That is your big lane winner. And the next lane winner is probably going to be, in my opinion, Bishop or Collector. It's going to be getting that consistent cycle of more cards back to your hand, back to your hand, back to your hand. Get the Hood up to a 1/3 via Bast and get lots of demons, get them to go back, bounce them back again and again. There's a lot of cool things that can be done with Blounce, and that is a deck that scales very high right now, especially because we're not seeing the big Sandy guy. We're going from a world where there was 1 activate card to 4 activate cards now. And this is going to take some getting used to. This was obviously done intentionally by the devs. They gave us the symbiote Spider-Man early on, let some people get used to seeing it, get used to playing against it, and now they're going live with Aranya and freshening up 2 other cards. I want to know what other cards you think deserve the activate ability. Let me know down in the comments. Sure, there were some other things that happened in the OTA, like Sakar's gonna look like its normal self again, Invisible Woman got fixed, and lots of other stuff. Take a look at the notes, which I'll have linked down in the description, because you're gonna already be down there letting me know in the comments what you would like to see, because you guys are awesome, as you've always been, and I appreciate it. Y'all have a good one.